You got it. All right. Good evening. This is the House Judiciary Committee on the 27th of February 2024. There are four. You should have four amendments. Is it five? How are there five? Sure. That's fine. Let me just hold on. All right, you may have five, but we're gonna do four. So the two, I'm gonna start with the one that starts 283320.
Number one.
Amendment
Number one.
283320. This amendment, so as we discussed before, we changed the structure of the bill to allow the commission to start its work on July 1st. And then as it stands now, the rest of the bill comes into effect on October 1st. That would change from October 1st to January 1st of 2025. That's what this amendment does, just as it says. There's a motion for a favorable and a second discussion. Delegate Tolles.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm totally in favor of this. I just had a process question just for the good of the order. So we special ordered this, obviously today, and within our rules, we bringing it. These will be on the floor whenever we get to whenever you send them to the floor. And they'll be part of a full package of the bill as friendly amendments when you discuss the bill on the floor. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry. There are a couple of these that we have mentioned already, and so I'm taking this one first because it's the most straightforward, but there are two of these four amendments that fill in gaps in the bill that we had already talked about as amendments, but because of a technical issue, they did not actually make it into the bill, into the amendment that then went into the bill that went to the floor. So we're remedying a problem with two of them. With this is new language. Delegate Munoz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we've heard a lot of testimony about how important this legislation is and the issue we're dealing with in the state with juvenile crime. So I'm wondering why we have this amendment to push the amendments back from October 1, 2024 to January 1, 2025.
I think the feeling is that there are people who would feel more comfortable knowing that there is that much more time for everybody to get prepared for the structural changes that are being made in the bill. It gives DJS some more time to get organized, to make sure that their people know what's going on. And it is a 3-month difference. It's not nothing, but it also gives the commission the opportunity to get started a little bit too, see things as they have been, and start to see the changes that we have put in the bill a little more clearer, I guess, going forward.
So I know we have, I guess, bills that are going to affect like June 1 and October 1. Do we generally have bills that go into effect January 1?
Well, you heard earlier today that some of the police reform bills didn't come into force for a full 1.5 or 2 years after the bill was signed by the governor, that bill wasn't. But having said that, before they became law. So in this case, the feeling was that this was a reasonable compromise to address any concerns that there isn't enough time to get this up and running by October 1st. So yes, it can be done.
Your question.
Are there any other questions? All right, there's a motion and a second on this amendment. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. All opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The amendment is adopted 17-5. All right, now I'm going to go to the first of two let's go to 173,629. In our discussions of the bill, there was a discussion that was supposed to be included in the first big group of amendments to address a requirement to have the Department of Juvenile Services provide certification in writing that they are able, or writing to the court within 25 days of the date of disposition of a treatment plan. So this amendment requires them to provide that certification and then provide a copy of that certification to the commission so that they can follow along with what's going on. And they can follow along with with whether DJS is actually hitting their targets with regard to treatment plans or not. That was part of, again, what was described when we were talking about the bill before. So this is basically a technical fix to make sure that what we talked about before is actually in the bill. And with that, I'd like a motion. There's motion for a favorable in a second. Any discussion on what should be a technical amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of this amendment, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. All right. All right. Anybody opposed? It's 20, or no, Delegate Toll's not opposed. That'd be 22. Okay. That's fine. Still 22. All right. So we did that one. And we did that one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why this is that way. All right, so I'm going to go to another amendment that has a change that we talked about that was supposed to be part of an amendment that went, that the amendment that went to the floor, the first set of amendments, but now has a change that I'll just describe in full. What 513928. What this amendment does is now two things. It strikes from the bill 4 sections of the public safety article that relate to, this is 5136, 138, 139, and 141. These were some of the misdemeanors that are a part of Article 5 of the public safety article, but they deal with fairly, if not unimportant, fairly obscure sections of that area, and they're sections of the law where it is highly unlikely that a child would be likely to violate these sections. 5136 and 141 have to do with straw purchases. 139 is the false application. And actually there is a typographical error. It includes 138. It should not include, oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading it wrong. There are 3 sections that are being taken out. 136, 139, and 141. 136 and 141 are straw purchases. 139 is when a person makes a false application to purchase a gun, and it was pointed out that it would be highly unlikely that a 10-year-old would choose to go to Bass Pro Shops and seek to fill out the application process to purchase a gun. While not impossible, it is not necessarily what we're looking for and being covered by this part of the bill. So the violations related to handguns would be limited to the other sections, including the illegal selling of a firearm, the possession of a registered firearm, a regulated firearm, the possession or the sale of stolen guns, the obliteration of a serial number on a gun, the possession of a short-barreled rifle or the possession of a ghost gun. Those all remain in the bill. We take out the three that I described a moment ago. The other thing that the amendment does, when we first passed the amendments out, we indicated that we wanted to, the first time that someone was going to be charged for being involved in a car theft, we wanted them to be required to go to diversion right out of the gate before they even get in the door at DJS. What this amendment would do would be to extend that not only to the theft of a car, but also to the firearm crimes that I mentioned before. Had some extensive discussions, and I had discussions with the vice chair, the speaker, and others who are comfortable with the feeling that this would be only for a one time. If they are arrested once with this as a count, if they came back a second time, they would be subject to full juvenile jurisdiction. But by setting them up for a diversion process in the front door, we do two things. Quite frankly, we avoid a sins process that is not entirely clear, while at the same time making sure that the kids don't go into the DJS system without going through a diversionary program first. And so that is Amendment 513928. Could I have a motion, please, on the amendment?
Second.
Motion for a favorable, and the second will have discussion. Delegate Kaufman.
Yes, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry it's late. My head is spinning a little bit, so I'm going to have you repeat yourself a little bit. You said one of the crimes you're taking out was lying on a gun application, which is, I guess, like the Hunter Biden thing. And then what were the two other? I'm just trying to put it in real life. That's all. Anyway, and then what were the two other crimes? I'm trying to ask.
He's actually being serious.
I'm actually trying to ask. So you said
Talking about
which? Can you repeat the three things again that are being removed?
The three gun crimes that are being removed from the list of gun crimes that are in fact in a couple different parts of the bill. We would not be addressing issues related to children who would participate or receive guns as part of a straw purchase. They use a person who is able to legally purchase the gun in order to get the gun themselves, or as was mentioned, the false application. We take those out.
Simply because you do not think that juveniles will engage in a straw purchase? Is that why?
I don't believe that is as common.
I would agree with you. I was just trying to understand. Okay, thank you.
And delegates Grammar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a really interesting thing to pull out of the bill. And we know, the amount of illegal guns that happens in violent crimes, most of them are illegal. So you're pulling out straw purchases, participation in straw purchases, and illegal sale or transfer of a stolen firearm. Like, why are we not taking that?
We're not taking stolen out. We're not taking that out. Just to be clear, it substitutes 5138, and that is the stolen gun language. So that stays in. That stays in. The other three sections come out.
So I get, where there aren't going to be many applications for purchase of a firearm. So 5139 is, but why straw purchases? It's a pretty germane charge in relationship to the problems we're experiencing.
In that case, the child is almost certainly in possession of the gun already. So you're going to get there one way or the other with that. And if it's somehow connected to the theft of the gun, then we still have the stolen gun in there. Quite frankly, there are other things. These are in a part of the bill where there's probably other things going on. So I'm not as concerned about the straw purchase as I am keeping all of the other things that are there.
I get that. I just feel inclined, since we're talking about diversion, this is this is a time where we should clearly be engaging these youth.
No, I understand that. Delegate Taylor.
Just for clarification, Mr. Chair, the first piece of this that strikes the particular provisions, does this apply to only the 10 to 12-year-olds, or was this for all youth?
So this would apply to the 10 to 12-year-olds. It also applies in situations where there's a pretrial, a potential for pretrial detention. That's on it's page 9 of the bill. In the reprint, I'm not exactly sure where in the reprint, but if you look at the top corner, you can see these citations listed at the very bottom of the piece of paper that says page 9 of 23. So those are there are 3 places in the bill where this is the case. The third, so it's the part with 10 to 12-year-olds and the part regarding pretrial detention. Yeah, and I think that's basically it.
So it applies to 10 to 12-year-olds.
So what it means is if there is a 10 to 12-year-old who is engaging in a straw purchase of a firearm, then they would not fall under juvenile jurisdiction. Delegate Roberson, then Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, trying to compare bills and just make sure our numbers are correct. I'm looking for is animal cruelty supposed to also be listed in here, or where is
No.
that?
Animal cruelty and 3rd-degree sex offense would still fall under DJS supervision.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Delegate Sample Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You had started talking about the diversion process. So I just wanted to get an understanding. If a juvenile comes into contact or commits a crime, then they would not, on their first interaction, they would not go straight to a diversionary program. Is that correct?
No, the first time they come in, they would go to a
They would,
diversionary program,
okay.
directly into a diversionary
Okay.
program. And then the second time, they would be subject to the jurisdiction of the juvenile courts.
Okay, thank you.
So that they get one chance to go through diversion and they can't come
Mhm.
back again.
And that's decided upon by whom?
Be DJS to determine
Whether
whether
or
they
not they
had
go into
been
the
through the program,
diversion.
and at that point, it doesn't matter whether it's a successful completion or not. It's just, it would be a participation in that process. Oh, you just pressed the button.
Okay,
Lauren was trying to be helpful and we can't find the Human Services article, but I was gonna read the diversionary program information from that. But that's available at 8601 of the Human Services article, and you can see that on your laptops.
mhm.
Delegate Munoz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the removal of the application and false application. That makes sense. I'm just a little bit concerned about the straw purchases. We said it was unlikely for a 10 to 12-year-old to be able to, to be engaged in a straw purchase. But is it something that's impossible? Is this something that adults could use 10 to 12-year-olds to make straw purchases on their behalf? Are we setting them
No.
up? No.
Because this goes back to why, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it goes back to why we're eliminating the language, the section related to the illegal or to the improper application for a gun in the first place. And I made light of it with a 10-year-old at Bass Pro Shops. I mean, they're not, that is unlikely to happen. Yeah, we're creating a bit of an impossibility there because they're not going to be able to get the gun in the first place. The
Okay.
point of the straw purchase is that in order to, if I'm using your example, to coerce the child into purchasing a gun would require the child to be able to purchase the gun legally somehow, which they can't. Right.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
All right. Delegate Taylor, again.
You just mentioned that the child would go directly to a diversionary program. Oh, I'm sorry, I do that all the time. You just mentioned that the child would go directly to a diversionary program directly, but still that's after they've been referred to DJS, right? So DJS makes that decision.
So we believe that it would be possible for the police officer to this is where we are relying on, in some cases, in some counties, the diversionary programs that already exist that law enforcement runs, but it's broadly defined as being, and I'll read from the statute. An at-risk youth prevention and diversion program means services provided to school-age youth and their families to prevent or divert youth from entering the juvenile justice system and to help them make ready for adulthood by 21. The idea being with this, that a police officer before they got to DJS would go to one of these programs, and we would be asking local law enforcement to make arrangements with those local programs to do this before they even step foot in the front door of DJS.
I think that's awesome. I wonder if that's clear here, that the police also have that option.
I think that we think that, I believe that it's clear in order for them to
Okay.
get jurisdiction, they would have to take that next step. And again, many jurisdictions have these programs already. On top of that, for what it's worth, from a record keeping standpoint, the next part of what they have to do, because they had made an arrest, they would have to turn in a report, and they would indicate on that report. And so this is consistent with that language as well, that they were diverting the child prior to them going to DJS in the first place.
Right, because they would have to know if it was in a second offense. If they directed them, they would have to know that this child
Right.
this is their second time coming through.
Right. Delegate Cardin.
You actually I think you just answered my question. It was, the data is going to get to DJS about the diversion so that a master record can be kept of what's happening.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Delegate Erican.
I would move the previous question and I would motion for a roll call.
All right. So there's a motion and a second. And there was a motion and a second on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment will please raise their hands. 1,
Roll call,
2,
sir.
3. You want a roll call? Bartlett,
Aye.
Munoz, Crutchfield, Cardin, Sample Hughes, Embry, Pasteur, Tolles, Simmons, Boucher, Phillips. Need an interpreter for Delegate Boucher. Roberson, Tomlinson, Erican, Taylor, Simpson, Grammer, Moon, Valentine, Conaway, Kaufman,
Yes.
and Williams.
Yes.
The vice chair. I got the vice chair. 16-5. Sorry, he was the first one. All right, so the amendment is adopted. Okay, the last one, 213325 is new. I think I may have made reference to it at some point in the last 24 hours, but I'm not sure if I did. This goes to the part of the bill where the Department of Juvenile Services is required to put together a 3-year plan. And as part of that 3-year plan, we had generic language that they were to create a program that addressed people at risk of becoming involved in gun violence. That part, you have the part that I'm talking about, because the other thing I should be doing with this entire time when I'm struggling to find something is to constantly get you all to give Lauren a round of applause for everything she does. Because then I can kill enough time to find it in the bill. It's not the real reason. It's not real reason. So in the 3-year plan, they're required, as the bill is right now, to include programs developed for youth at the highest risk of becoming victims or perpetrators of gun violence. What we would do is add another line underneath that said, include programs developed specifically for individuals at least 10 years old and under the age of 15 years who are at the highest risk of becoming victims or perpetrators of gun violence. If you have a copy of the amendment and it says of perpetrators, we meant to say victims or perpetrators of gun violence. And the amendment, we had to ask for that typo to be fixed. So it should read at the highest risk of becoming victims or perpetrators of gun violence. So it adds that line and gives them another thing to add into their 3-year plan. Could I have a motion, please, on this amendment? Motion is second. Any discussion about this? Our delegate Sample Hughes.
And I guess this kind of goes back to that last amendment. We talk casually that there are programs available in jurisdictions for these youth to go to. But do we really have them? I mean, do we have a list? And this kind of goes the same for this amendment, include programs and things like that nature, but what are where they're going?
So where we're going is by putting this also close to the language in the bill where we're effectively putting in a generic version of the Thrive program.
Mhm.
The idea is that we would like that program to have some part of its focus be on 10 to 14-year-olds. That is a program that they already have and that they're beginning to roll out statewide. It also, for what it's worth, is a part of the reason that you would want to move the effective date back to January 1st to give people the time to start working with local organizations or working with the department to connect them with this organization so that they have the ability to participate in those programs.
Right,
That's
for this amendment, correct?
for this amendment.
Right, but-
This is actually going to be stuff that they will have to do in the long term because it's going to be part of their 3-year plan. They're going to have to plan for this in the long term.
Mhm.
So this actually, to your point, that those programs, to the extent that they exist. If they don't, they have some time between the time this bill becomes law and January 1st to be put in place.
Right, for this generic Thrive program, but I hate to do this, but the other amendment that we just did, all jurisdictions don't have a diversionary program. The law enforcement, they know that they don't have it, so I guess it kind of goes with the same question.
Sure.
Do the local jurisdiction just start up one right now?
I think that there's enough time and they can work with people to begin the process to look at what other counties are doing. And what we learned as part of the program that the briefings that we had over the summer
Mhm.
was that Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, a couple other counties have significant programs. And so I think it's possible that they could learn from those counties and export what works and what doesn't and move those into other places. I think the other part of this, and the reason, again, it's in their plan is this, I believe, the secretary, and I'll look at my good friend from the department a little bit here, that this program, the Thrive program in particular, is something that is very important to the secretary and that he has been focused on quite a bit. So I believe by coming at this from a multiple number of directions, hopefully that will give people the opportunity to have those programs in place.
And I know we don't deal with the fiscal side of things, but we got enough to.
Well, I'm
Accommodate that.
talking to a former local government person at this point, I think. Yeah, no, I take that point.
Okay.
I absolutely take that point. And I think but at the same time, I think it's possible to do what we need to do. And if I need to go and talk to Appropriations Chair Barnes about yet another thing, I'm wearing a fairly worn path over there these days.
I think that would be fine.
All
Thank
right.
you.
The Vice Chair.
I just wanted to add that I have spoken to our Anne Arundel County Police Chief, and she was telling me that she's been meeting with other, when they have their meetings, other chiefs. And they are discussing the program in Anne Arundel County, and they are discussing ways to implement in their own respective counties. Also, there is federal money through the Office of it's OJJDP, Office of Juvenile Justice, something, I can't remember, I forget the rest. Yeah. Anyway, OJJDP gives money to start up these programs, and that's how Anne Arundel County got the 400,000 to start up the program. So I know that they're taking the show on the road. And they did it, when they came in for our briefing. But that was actually, we were practiced on presenting. because I know that they're, you know, presenting it to others as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like this amendment in the spirit of all of the local government discussion. And as a former local government individual, I wanted to say for the record, even local government, something that you know, Sharice Semple Hughes brought up as well, is that there is, you know, money and programs within local governments to be able to support programs and to start up programs and to develop programs. And I think it's a positive thing because it's, you know, specific to that jurisdiction. So, you know, what happens in Prince George is maybe different than, you know, Anne Arundel County. And hopefully the show does go on the road because that's a former member of our police force in Prince George. So sorry, Gary, but it's facts. But with that being, you know, with that being said, I definitely would like, it's a long day. I would like to move the question, previous question.
As a motion for the previous question, you just stepped on your district mate though, and so. Delegate Roberson, if you would like to make brief comment or ask a brief question or a long question, if you wish to irritate your district mate, it's up to you.
I'm being pressured. I'm glad it's on video. No, but I do want to echo what Delegate Semple Hughes said, and I've raised this in our previous hearing as far as voting on this bill. And I'm glad we have a fiscal note now from our previous reprint. As far as the fiscal note shows, it shows as far as FY 2025, we'll have 10.1 million going up to 12.6, 13.1 and 27, 13.3 and 13.7. So I see the investment is there. I'm grateful for that. And I continue to echo the fact that if we're mandating this as a state, need to put the funds behind this as well. And so I'm supportive of the bill with the understanding that we're actually funding what we're demanding DJS and SINs to put forward. So with that, I will move previous question.
See how he did that. And a second. Look, there was a motion.
Mr. Chair, point of parliamentary order here.
Oh.
I have to do it since it happened twice. You cannot move the previous question if you participate in the debate.
Oh,
That is all.
Yeah. That's the majority leader right there.
Ladies and gentlemen watching at home, it's time. It's time for us to go home. 213-325 has been moved and seconded. All in favor of the amendment, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Anybody opposed? Didn't see anybody. The amendment is passed. Thank you very much. We will be back for bill hearings tomorrow. Thank you.